Hi, William. Thanks for taking the time to talk with me about a little situation that is maybe quite common. And yeah, I'm happy to hear what you are mindful doing about this. So imagine you are working for a company, let's say a telecommunications company, right? And you heard a lot about the value that data can bring, and you saw a lot of stuff happening around AI, and generative AI is a big topic. And you also maybe heard already about data products, but how do I even start making my ideas come to life when it comes to data and AI and all of that? What are you guys doing that I can actually have like a value out of my data?
Yeah, hi, Francie. Thanks. I think this is a great question, and I think it's also very frequent, especially nowadays that we have so many trends and hypes, right? So
Yeah.
we have data mesh, we have generative AI, we have data fabric, and people listen to all of these buzzwords and they feel like maybe I'm missing something.
Or
And
it's a
I
bit
know we have,
much.
yeah, so I know we have data in my company, and I know that we have people that could analyze this data, but how to start, right? Or
Mhm.
maybe the situation is other. So I've tried it a lot of times, and I am not delivering value. So I remember having a conversation with a customer where she told me, William, we have a great relationship with the business. We talk, they ask us to build things, and we build them. And once we
Mhm.
deliver the things to them, they are not happy. They say, no, this is not what I asked, or this is
Yeah.
not really helping my problem anymore. So how can you ensure that this is not happening? And I think that one of the things that we do differently at Mindful is that we don't start with solutions, right? And we don't start with use cases. So a lot of companies have the approach that I call use case hunting. So
Hmm.
it's like basically it's like if they are running with a set of use cases. So these are my 10 use cases for your industry, and pick one, right? So when I was in banking, this was typical. So all of the major consultancies would come to us and say, hey, these are the use cases. Do you want to implement one of them? And they are all very similar, but it was tailored a lot in the solution. And I think what we do different is we say if you want data and analytics to have an impact on your business, you need to start with your business, right? So you need to understand where it is painful today, which is your strategy, or what are your strategic priorities, and get down from that, methodically into a point where you can say, okay, this is something that I know that I can influence with machine learning or with analytics. So
And
if I think
maybe,
about
oh,
the
sorry.
yeah, if I think
Oh,
about the telecommunications company, but and if you wanted to ask a question already, Francie.
yeah, I would just want to ask a question to clarify it there a little bit. When you say solution, what do you mean exactly? Do you mean like a technical solution, or what is the description of
Yes,
that?
so for example, you have people who say, I have you the churn reduction, right?
Hmm.
Or I have you the personalization engine, or I have the fraud detector that is already like pre-developed,
Hmm.
and people try to use these pre-developed things and sell them to you, right? So it's like the typical thing. If you already have a hammer, then everything is a nail, right? So these solutions are hammers that someone already developed,
Hmm.
and of course, especially consultancies, they try to reuse what they already have.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. If you always start with a solution,
Hmm.
it's the same. Another typical example that happened a couple of years ago was with Snowflake, right? So when Snowflake came into the market, it was so famous that the businesses would come to the data team and say, we need or I need Snowflake.
Hmm.
And the question like, why? No, I don't know, but I need Snowflake, right? So sometimes it's like this magic around a specific product name that you get the request, and some data, teams are so used to this dynamic, the business asks and I deliver. And if I deliver what my business is asking, then they will be happy.
Hmm.
The business would say, I need Snowflake, and people would go and buy Snowflake, without even asking, why do you need it?
Yeah.
And one specific then case with Snowflake, and then we can go in back to our telecommunications world
Sure.
is this happened to me personally. Is a business came to us and say, I need Snowflake. And instead of saying, yes, of course, we asked, so why? I don't think you need Snowflake. And, after a couple of iterations, he said, yes, because they have this new functionality where you have a marketplace about data, right? And I think it would be really cool if I could, exchange data inside the company in an easier way. So, that there is the difference, because if you ask a couple of times, then the user was able to articulate what they wanted, and we say, okay, but this we can build maybe with the technology stack that we already have, or we have this tool and we need to repurpose it. So
Yeah. So
it's
actually, if you ask deeper questions, you might find out you definitely need it, or you maybe don't need it. You can work with what you have already.
exactly, and we use 4 dimensions, and actually we took 3 from digital product management and 1 that we adapt specifically for data. So the 3 dimensions are desirability. So does a customer want this and why? We have viability. So from a business perspective, is this viable in the sense of can I afford it? But also, will it have like a monetary impact? We have technical feasibility, which is like, do I have the tools and technologies to do it? And we have a fourth that is called datability, which is the data feasibility, because we realized data and software and data and technology are different. And especially for data science, machine learning, AI, you like the data must also fit the use case. So maybe you need the right distribution, or you need the right type of data columns. And if you don't have that, you are not able to develop your solution. So we said this feasibility around of data is so important that we need to separate it.
So just thinking about what you just said, if I imagine I would look into, okay, what can I do with my data that I have? You would take those 4 dimensions and always go around in a circle, let's say, and look at all the dimensions. What can I actually do with my data, and does it fit a certain criteria of those dimensions?
Yes, and while exploring the dimensions, you might find problems that your users have, right? So in this desirability, you have for sure to talk with users, and it's the example, for example, of this Snowflake, right? They say, I need Snowflake, but if we were to ask what the customer really needs, it was not Snowflake, it was sharing data. So you actually found what your user was desiring, and the solution is evaluated in a different start, right? But before all of this, and maybe we go back to the tech company, what we try to do is understand what are the priorities of the business, what we call outcomes. So what is important for them, and how can you influence that? So I'm going to go out of telco because I have an even better example that
Oh,
comes to
okay.
mind. So
Don't
I'm sure
worry.
you've used Duolingo, right, for
Yeah,
learning
I learned Dutch
languages.
with it actually right now. So
Ah, cool. So, Duolingo, there's someone who is, a digital product manager at Duolingo, or they have multiple, and someone said, we need a nice way to keep people engaged with Duolingo, right? So this was the problem. And if you go through this process of identifying what do people really want, so that's what my business wants. And then they thought, how can I satisfy a customer need so that this outcome happens? So I know the business wants more users staying longer. And they came with the idea of streaks, that you say, oh,
oh
you've been
yeah.
in Duolingo for 2 days, 3 days. So it's a way to keep you motivated, right? Because it's
Yeah.
intrinsically motivation. And beyond this streak, you need data, right? So you need data from how often people are logging into to Duolingo. Did they logged in yesterday or not? And based on that, you can calculate the streak. So it's maybe a very basic data product. So it's not machine learning, it's not artificial intelligence, but just delivering that data and that calculation on a daily insight is driving customer value. So you could say calculating streak is a data product that delivers value, that is generating the desired outcome that your business has.
No, I
Yeah.
really love this example because maybe not everyone, but a lot of people have probably tried out an app like Duolingo, and I think that makes it really understandable what you meant with business outcomes and also how a solution can nurture this business outcome. And yeah.
Maybe we have time for another example, right? So
Yeah, sure.
I come from banking, and you mentioned telco before. So a huge problem is fraud, right? So fraud in financial fraud, fraud in telecommunications fraud, and companies are getting like a reputation hit because of this, because I know you, but I live in Italy, and I get these calls all of the time, right? And there are multiple types of fraud in telecommunications. So you have people that call you once so that you call them back, and maybe their number is a number that costs, I don't know, like €2 per minute. So just by calling, you have given people €2, and you don't know. Then you have people that are trying to, answer the same with SMS, or they would impersonate someone, and customers are starting to put this blame into the telco companies. They say, so it should be, the telecom, the Vodafone, the AT&T of this world that protects me as a customer, because they are abusing their network. So
they're
we know this is
masquerading.
yes,
They're
right?
masquerading without me noticing, and then you're like, no, damn it.
Exactly. So we know this is very painful. It's painful for the customers. It's painful for the business, and I'm sure that some telecommunication or major telecommunication company has right now in their strategy, we want to reduce the number of frauds, or we want to increase customer satisfaction. And then you say, okay, what is one of the number one reasons because customers are not satisfied is because of fraud through our network, right? So following this thought, okay, this is important for the business because it's hurting the revenues. It's customer satisfaction. Then how do I go? And if you keep asking questions, you ask, okay, so how do telecommunications companies address fraud today? And they have people that really see a sample of data or a sample of calls and try to manually say, okay, this is fraud or not, right? So it's a manual intervention is one of the strategies. Then you have rules where they say, okay, these people have learned about some of these basic fraud mechanisms, and they have codified this into rules that you can execute on your network and cancel some of these or not. What happens usually is that the attackers, the fraudsters, they start learning that they are getting blocked, and they switch tactics, and then you have to start again, right? Because they are changing tactics frequently. So every time that you have a new set of rules, then they will adapt. And this is a point where you say, yes, but it's data, right? And it's patterns. So why don't we try, instead of using people and rules, to use machine learning or artificial intelligence to see if we can identify the patterns faster and make our network more secure from fraud, right? And this works. So this would be an example, very briefly. And people usually say, once you have heard something, it's obvious. But imagine if you don't know, right? Or if you are new to telecommunications, and just this 4-step thought process, if you don't have the methods or this way of thinking, maybe you will never reach this conclusion, or you will reach it too late, right? You will wait until someone comes and try to sell you the fraud detection use case. So this is how we approach things, right? So we always ask a lot of questions at the beginning. We try to understand the businesses, the pain, and people sometimes say, but why are you asking all of this if you are focused on data and AI? And we say, because you want it to have a business impact, right? So you need to understand your business.
Yeah. That was a nice summary at the end there. I like this. So first, ask questions, really discover what actually the problem is or the need is, and then look at how can we solve it with the data or analytics that we already have, or we might need something new, right? Depending on the situation.
The trick would be, to provide business value while you have your customers happy. right? Because some people say, yes, you should focus more on customer value or more on business value. I think you can provide both, right? And at the end, it's always the business value what matters, right? So
Yeah.
business value by delighting customers.
Yeah. Thanks, William.